Well, how the turntables. Marjorie Taylor Greene is now releasing a pretty serious post on social media. And it seems to be a call out of her dear leader, king, God, all of those things, the orange man, Donald Trump. And I'll talk about sort of a lot of context and how there's this conspiracy going on that relates to what she said. But let's just read the post first. How is she speaking negatively of Trump? She says, I represent the base. And when I'm frustrated and upset over the direction of things, you better be clear the base is not happy. I campaigned for no more foreign wars. Oh, if you don't know who Marjorie Taylor Greene is, Marjorie Taylor Greene, to our new viewers, imagine the most wild Facebook lady that you've ever met, but then give her a bunch of power, I guess. That's kind of Marjorie. I think that sums it up. And now we are supposedly on the verge of going to war with Iran, Marjorie says. I don't think we should be bombing foreign countries on behalf of other foreign countries, especially when they have their own nuclear weapons and massive military strength. And on top of that, now we are told that we have signed a deal for mineral rights in Ukraine in order to pay us back for the hundreds of billions of dollars that we gave Ukraine and they used for money laundering. False. Sold the weapons we gave them to our enemies, and their leader is a dictator who canceled elections, was involved of the first impeachment of Trump, and campaigned for Biden. So it's going to be really difficult for you to hear when she's talking, because I don't want to do her accent. People will say, oh, no, that's me. No, why? Zelensky, campaign for Biden. I don't want to do that, right? I don't want to be like... Nah, you know where I'm going. I don't want to do that. It's mean. So let me just read this all, and then I'll try to go through and explain some of what she's wrong about, but very little of that last paragraph was accurate. Then she said, didn't we learn our lesson when we went to war in Iraq and killed Saddam Hussein because of weapons of mass destruction? Did we ever find any? And did any of that oil over in the Middle East make us rich? The answer is no. We are $36 trillion in debt today. Mostly because of Republican tax cuts. So why on earth would we go over and occupy Ukraine and spend an untold amount of future American taxpayer dollars defending and mining their minerals, as well as potentially putting American lives at risk and future war? Why don't we just mine our own rare earth minerals? That's actually true, but that are tied up on federal lands that the government confiscated years ago. I do think we should ramp up our own mining on that front, but I also think, cooperating with Ukraine works too. I also campaigned on accountability for the communist and tyrannical acts made by the government during COVID. These were crimes against humanity, she said. Yet the COVID vaccine still has FDA approval, even though there are millions reported injuries and deaths, and this mRNA vaccine is known to have horrific side effects and does not stop people from catching COVID. And to this day, it's still on the childhood vaccine schedule. Why on earth is this happening? Hasn't Big Pharma made enough billions and billions and billions of dollars on this slide? Now, some people have said, I'm not saying this. You think I'm saying this. It's really bothering me. I'm not saying this. Some people said they don't buy that Marjorie wrote this because it's so many words. No, this is not a joke. I don't agree with that. I know she can do really good words. Perfect words. Many words. Look at how many words. I know other people were saying that and I was like, what are you doing? Of course she can write this many words. Hey, stop. Some of you are getting upset with me. I can feel it. What? I also campaigned on accountability for all the lawfare that was waged against the American people in the past 4 years. What about all the people that were locked up in jail and the abuse that they went through? And when are those vicious attorneys and judges ever going to be held accountable for the lives they ruined? And I campaigned for an end to waste, fraud, and abuse of the American people's harder tax dollars. Harder tax dollars? Look, that's what she wrote. Not hard-earned, harder. My tax dollars are hard. I have very erect tax dollars. I believe the Doge mission is one of the most important things happening today in our government. And yet, where are the rescissions that we should be voting on in Congress? And one of the biggest issues in the nation that I have fought for, and early on I was one of the only ones that took a loud and screaming stand against, is the evil transgender assault against our children. Most normal people in this country can't even comprehend how it's allowed to happen to kids who by law can't even get a tattoo, drive, or vote. And how did so many of our teachers turn into the predators themselves that groom children with gender lies? This should be an all-out effort by Republicans to end this insanity. I'm getting really bored. Okay, we're close. And then I'm going to go through it, okay, piece by piece, but just wait. And look at the extreme nature of our rogue. This is a complete freak out in text form. Nature of our rogue judicial system that is so defiant that there are judges that defy our nation's laws and block the deportation of literal enemies of the United States of America. Where is the outrage and moral courage to dispose of this treason? Sadly, not in Congress. And what about election integrity? This should be the most important issue that Republicans aggressively fight to protect, because without secure elections protected from illegals voting and protections from stealing our votes, the American people have lost their power. When you are losing MTG, now she's talking third person, you're losing the base, and Trump isn't on the ballot in the future, so do the math on that. I guess this is partially, first of all, so much outrageous stuff in there, but kudos, because I do appreciate that she at least, you know, when Trump does long posts, it's so disjointed. You don't even know why he's capitalizing certain things, and then he's misspelling certain things, and the grammar's a mess. This was a little bit more thoughtful. There's still issues, but a little bit more thoughtfully written. Credit to MTG on that. And maybe she would say, no, I'm mainly talking about Republicans, but this whole Iran thing and Trump not punishing the people who did these abuses, those abuses, that's a Trump related thing. So she might not want to name him, but this is a Trump criticism. So let's go through a few of these pieces and I'll give you more info on sort of where the base is on this. The verge of going to war with Iran. I obviously don't want to go to war with Iran. I guess it's the Trump threats and then other Republicans bolstering it that maybe is sparking that. And then she's talking about not supporting bombing of other countries. So similar vein there. We know her stances on Ukraine and the absurdity of her calling Zelensky a dictator. She never calls Putin a dictator. Zelensky's not a dictator. The Constitution of Ukraine mandates you don't have elections during wartime, so he's just following the law there. They didn't sell the weapons to our enemies. The money laundering she didn't substantiate. He didn't campaign for Biden. He wasn't involved other than being on the phone, but he wasn't helping to get Trump impeached. And then she talks about Saddam Hussein, kind of a bunch of stuff there. She's not for this mineral deal that Trump struck with Ukraine, which honestly is better than I expected and sort of allows the U.S. to get preferential treatment and economically benefiting from the natural resources in Ukraine. And then the money that comes from new projects on that front goes into a joint fund to invest in the reconstruction of Ukraine after the war is over. So kind of fair. But then her COVID stances, we know, are just absolutely bonkers. The COVID vaccine has literally saved millions of lives. It's been analyzed. That's the case. She won't address that. And then kind of just stuffs in a bunch of her talking points there. And then it's a lot of why is Trump not doing more retribution, which I've heard from some MAGA folks, which is I thought that we were going to see Joe Biden in handcuffs and Hillary Clinton and all these people. Why aren't we seeing them go to jail? Here's the reason, because even the corrupt Trump administration knows that they would be laughed out of court if they tried to bring cases. So in some situations, like with Christopher Krebs, they're trying to make his life. He's already feeling, we'll talk about this in maybe the bonus show. Click the join button below to get the bonus show. But he's already feeling the naked repercussions, the negative repercussions of this investigation. Whenever you start being subjected to a federal investigation, that brings onto you a lot of life hindrances. So for someone like that, They're just trying to harass him. They know they're not going to get a conviction in court, but the harassment's the point. But if they were to go after someone more prominent, I think they're worried they would be humiliated because they don't actually have evidence of the election was stolen, which she wants justice on, but maybe it wasn't stolen and they know that, and that's why they're not going to go try to prosecute you on it. Marjorie, ever thought of that? Which is a big part of this. They have all of these ideas, and it was so easy to believe them when it was Joe Biden in power. Like, Biden's covering up the Epstein list and the deep state's making sure we don't know X, Y, or Z. And we could get the true story about JFK, but it's being hidden. And then Trump comes in and they still don't get the answers that they wanted. And instead of going, maybe it's because the answers don't exist that we wanted, or thinking that Trump is corrupt, they just say the deep state's still hiding it from Trump, which is wild. And that nicely brings us to this next clip. Maybe we'll get back to the Marjorie post, but I'm a little bit exhausted. You remember that Hegseth had a close, loyal aide that he fired supposedly for leaking. And that aide went on to Tucker Carlson's podcast to say he's innocent, to which this conversation transpired.
Not involved at all. I'm just watching, but it seems like the fastest way to derail the whole project, the Trump administration and the United States of America, is a war with Iran. And that's why I've just been watching it as carefully as I can, because I feel like, again,
he's watching so carefully. He's normally this is his look, but when he's watching for war in Iran, it's this. He contorts even more. Oh. So I'll make sure to ask Tucker if anything concerns him about war with Iran.
If you hated Donald Trump and you hated what the administration is doing on immigration, trade, anti-wokeness, whatever, and you wanted to stop it, the first thing you would do is apply pressure to have the U.S. military engage in a war with Iran. I mean, that's my perspective on it anyway.
I would think that, and also continuing to do what we've been doing previously in Russia, Ukraine.
For sure. Though I don't know why. Well, I'm going to ask you all about this, but it feels like Witkoff
is doing nothing productive. So yeah, I don't know why Tucker worships Witkoff. Witkoff, how did you go from not being a diplomat at all to being the greatest diplomat in the history of the world? Witkoff, you somehow were able to negotiate a ceasefire that immediately collapsed in Gaza, and then negotiate a peace deal that never came to fruition with Russia and Ukraine. How'd you do that? That's like, I think you're a generational leader, Witkoff. Steve. That was the interview with Tucker. Oh, one of the most inspired all of the piece he's supposed to be doing is not happening. I don't know what the cheering on of him is, but this I'm so sick of, and I bet Marjorie's doing a little bit too. If they frame it instead of, we think Trump might push us into a war with Iran, which I haven't yet seen that. Trump makes all sorts of threats all the time. I'm not right now feeling this inevitability of that at all. And if I see the danger of that, then I'll, become more frightened. But they never just go, oh, maybe Hegseth, maybe Trump wants to do X, Y, Z thing that we don't like, or maybe they aren't going after the Democrats enough, or going after the deep state, or releasing the episode. It always has to be there's some other force that's keeping Trump from doing the things we want him to do. And we'll call that out, but we're too much of a bunch of cowards to call out Trump himself. A little bit more in this post, just to review. Same thing, go after the enemies. The judges shouldn't be able to do judges things. Election integrity, she doesn't know anything about election integrity. She still believes election lies. Maybe, as I said before, the reason that they're not seeing justice for the stolen elections in the past is because even they know there wasn't stolen elections against Trump. And then when you're losing MTG, you're losing the base. I mean, she has a little bit of an ego, a little bit of a head on her shoulders to get a little bit big there, Marjorie. But I kind of agree. I do think that the base is aligned with her, which is why I'm so depressed about the state of America, is because I do think she represents a lot of people unfortunately. I brought up Tucker Carlson, just one random note. He has another thought that he wanted to throw out during this Walsh interview.
That's not how people operate.
Have you noticed that like a huge percentage of war-crazed Republican senators are secretly gay? What is that?
Are they?
Yeah.
It's so weird that the mainstream media, it's funny that the mainstream media just doesn't want us to ask why it is that somehow there's this insane through line between sodomy and wanting to go to war. I don't understand that it's like the more gay you are, the more that you want to strike other countries. I don't, but the mainstream media never talks about that, does it? Do they? I'm just asking, have you noticed that?
Percentage of war-crazed Republican senators are secretly gay. What is that?
Even Matt Walsh, who in this interview said he'd rather, which we talked about in a different segment, he would rather a kid stay in foster care than be adopted into a loving gay family. Can a family be gay? You know what I mean. A gay couple, adopted by a gay couple. He said he would rather them stay in foster care. And even he is going, what?
Republican senators are secretly gay. What is that?
Are they?
Yeah. Like, what is that?
What is that?
What is the connection between...
Which are the ones that are secretly gay?
I don't know. The ones who are secret about it.
Excuse me? Which ones are you talking about, Tucker? The secret ones. The ones that I go to parties with. It's really interesting. It's like the more lube that you keep in the house, the more that you want to bomb other countries. It's really weird. I don't know.
Which are the ones that are secretly gay?
I don't know. The ones who are secret about it. But there is...
What does that mean? Can we analyze that one more time? Which secret Republicans? The ones that are secret. Huh?
Okay.
I don't know. The ones who are secret about it. But there is some kind of... I guess all I'm saying, I'm not being catty. I'm trying not to be catty or cruel or whatever.
Catty.
But I do think there's a connection to the way that you live at home, connection between the way you live at home and like the policies that you espouse and the impulses that you have and like the vision that you have for the country you lead. Like, I don't really know if you want people with like truly unsettled, dark personal lives with power. Do you?
Jaden, why are we always catching strays? You know what I mean? There are warmongers in this world. I don't think you blame it on the gays again? What? You blaming the gays for it, Tucker? What did we do to you? God. Isn't it weird that when you have a sick personal life, you want to murder people? So weird. Now, I guess if I were to steelman his argument, it's people who are trying to keep that secret because they're Republican. And yeah, that causes inner strife for people. And I guess that the way that they work that out is by bombing. Is Tucker's thesis. If they could just accept themselves, maybe they wouldn't be warmongers. Maybe that's his argument. I don't know. Very strange. Tucker, isn't it weird that every time I look at you, I get nauseous? That's just weird. Isn't it strange? Put it on screen. Isn't it weird? It's just a thought. What is that about, Tucker? What is that about, Tucker? I don't know. No, I'm asking you. What? Why is it every time I see you, I feel like I all of a sudden want to blink forever? It's weird. Share your thoughts in the comments.